Everybody, CVM here with BBD, and we're doing a Grand Prix DC edition of our Versus video this week, playing some Legacy decks as we ramp up for the Legacy GP here in our home state of Virginia. And I'm playing...
Well, it's DC. It's actually not.
It's on the Virginia side, though. The tournament is.
All right.
It's technically in Chantilly.
Yeah, it is technically in Virginia.
It is on the Virginia side. So I'm playing the Rug Delver deck. It's just a pretty wide-known Legacy staple deck. Most people consider it one of the top decks in the format every season, and it just continues to do well. Yeah,
this deck's been basically like fairly consistently good for a long time now.
Yeah,
and it's just always been considered one of the tier 1 fair decks, basically.
Definitely. This is actually the list from Drew Levin's article this week, one of his many Legacy articles that he's pumping out for us. And the reason that this type of deck is just continuing to thrive in the Legacy format is primarily due to Delver of Secrets, Stifle, Force of Will, and Wasteland. So being that we have access to dual lands, Legacy tends to have fairly greedy mana bases.
Yep.
And a lot of times you can just get some free wins off of, wasting somebody's, only land and then countering their Brainstorm.
Yeah, like so, a lot of decks only play 18 lands and run no non-basics.
That is correct.
Or run no basics, yeah.
That is also correct. And so Wasteland just allows us to attack the unstable mana bases that people like to play. Stifle allows us to do the exact same thing. Stifle is just a very, very versatile card. So it's not super powerful, whereas it's not always going to do everything that you want it to do all the time, but it's usually going to do something, and that something is usually going to be beneficial. So whether it's countering a fetch land activation, countering cast this card trigger off of Ancestral Visions, countering Stoneforge Enter the Battlefield trigger, or a Living Weapon trigger off of Batterskull, like it's always going to be able to do something in most matchups.
Yeah, like I've lost a game to someone stifling my O-Ring trigger. Like there's so many things you can do with it. Stifling a Jace bounce or a Liliana -2.
Yeah. Stifling Liliana -6 is also very good too.
Ooh.
So that is what leads to the deck just being popular. On top of Delver of Secrets is just a very aggressive card, being as we're only playing 18 lands. That gives us 32 other cards in the deck, 42 other cards in the deck, and the majority of them are spells and instants that are going to flip our Delver of Secrets.
It's actually just a straight 30 cards in this deck, flip Delver of Secrets.
Correct.
So it's actually 50%, and that's not counting Ponder, Brainstorm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're definitely, our Delver is going to be tapped and attacking as a 3/2 most of the time.
Yeah, he's already in position.
And then we have Nimble Mongoose and Tarmogoyf. So Drew actually goes in depth about why Nimble Mongoose is good in this deck in his article, and I actually really liked it. So Mongoose it's a very resilient threat that is larger than its cost. It's usually going to be a 3/3 in your deck, as you will have Threshold, but it only costs 1 mana. So the majority of the deck costs 1 mana, and we get to a point quickly where we're playing 2 and/or 3 spells per turn, which is where we get to pull ahead of our opponents because we're attacking their mana base, limiting the number of spells that they can cast, while we're also casting spells ourselves. And so Nimble Mongoose allows us to pressure our opponent, but still stay on that same tempo aspect of playing more spells than our opponent every single turn.
Right. Like what makes if you can go like turn 1 Delver, turn 2 Nimble Mongoose, and then hold open an island
for a Stifle.
Then you can Stifle, you can Spell Pierce, you can Lightning Bolt, you can cast a Brainstorm end of turn. You give yourself so much options there, or you can go like turn 1 Delver, turn 2 Mongoose, Wasteland you.
Mm-hmm.
Just having another 1 mana threat is very huge there.
Definitely. And then Tarmogoyf is just always going to be big. I expect him to be around here most of the time.
Yeah, probably will be.
Most of the time. So, and then just to round it out, we have Brainstorm Ponder to give us a little selection. Lightning Bolt, just one of the best removal spells in the format. I still don't think it's better than Swords to Plowshares, but that puts me in the minority. Most people consider Lightning Bolt to be better than Plow.
I think Plow's better too, but I think Lightning Bolt is better in this kind of deck.
I agree.
Because it also goes to the Dome, which is important. Because a lot of times you get in situations with this deck where you have to kill your opponent in 2 turns before your Dazes and your Stifles and your Spell Pierces no longer really do anything. They've kind of your opponent's pulled out of the early hole you put them in with those cards, and they're about to stabilize, and you're like, well, I have 2 turns to win. That's where Lightning Bolt comes in.
Yeah. And we'll have only 1 Gitaxian Probe. I actually like Probe a lot in this deck, but we only have 1 here, and then a Fire Ice just as a way to, it can draw a card if we need it to. It can tap down a blocker if we need it to, and it's also just very good at killing Deathrite Shaman or Dark Confidant or Stoneforge Mystic or something of that nature.
Yeah, I think Fire Ice is usually like a reasonable one of like I'm not like super excited by the card, but it's very versatile.
Yeah, I know a lot of people played Forked Bolt before. I'm not sure if this is better than Forked Bolt, but
yeah, I don't know how often you're icing. There's.
I'll tap that Gristlebrand so I can attack you for the win.
Yeah, Gristlebrand's forced to drink Smirnoff, icing him all day long.
That's my goal today, is to ice a Gristlebrand so that I can kill you. And then we have 18 lands. One of the unique things to mention is, since we don't have any basics, we just have to have fetches that get both of our duels. And Wooded Foothills is a unique fetch land that does that. So a lot of times, I can imagine playing this deck, you lead with Wooded Foothills Go, and then you just get to stifle your opponent out of nowhere because they're not expecting a Goblins deck to stifle them or a Gen deck to stifle them.
Yeah. If you lead with like Foothills, your opponent immediately puts you on like some sort of like loam, 4-color loam deck,
Yep.
or like Goblins, or like Jund or whatever.
Or a Zoo deck. They're wondering why you
Yeah.
didn't play your Wild Mikado.
Yeah. They're like, is he just trying to bolt me before he plays like Kasali Pride Mage or what? Yeah, and then you can fetch up an island and stifle or spell pierce,
something.
get them.
So that is the main deck. Let's go ahead and take a look at the sideboard and see what type of options we have for a sideboard with the deck that only has 18 lands in it. All right, everybody, CVM here again with the sideboard for the Rug Delver deck.
I'd like to interrupt, if I may, for a quick second.
Feel free.
Previously, you noted what kind of sideboard options we have for a deck with a mere 18 lands. It appears we have a card that costs 3, 5, and 6. So, yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Don't worry. I have faith.
Yeah.
We have Ponders and Brainstorms. So what more do you want? So we do have a 3-mana spell in Vendean Click, which is going to be difficult to cast on turn 3. However, in this deck, we don't want to cast it on turn 3. We're going to be casting it on like turn 5 or 6 when you cast Show and Tell. So Click is primarily for the combo decks. I also think it's probably pretty good against anything with Stoneforge in it, just as a way to get rid of a Batterskull, since this deck has a pretty tough time beating a Batterskull.
Yeah, definitely.
Croson Grip along the same lines. It's good against any of the equipment decks. Pithy Needle is also just a very good catch-all in the deck. It's good against like Sneak Attack. You can use it on like Umezawa's Jit, Stoneforge Mystic, Jace if you need to.
I also want to say about Croson Grip, I think one of the best cards in the format against Rug Delver is Rest in Peace.
Mm-hmm.
Croson Grip takes care of that.
Yeah, surprisingly is Rest in Peace.
Yeah, it shuts down Tarmogoyf and Nimble Mongoose.
Yeah. And we have Pithy Needle. Fortunately, doesn't handle Rest in Peace, but it is fairly good against things like Sensei's Divining Top, or just really anything we want to try and catch with it. Grafdigger's Cage is very good, as aforementioned in the previous deck tech for the Sneak and Show deck. It's good against Elves, it's good against Dredge, it's good against Reanimator. It's also not bad against Storm, too. Shutting off their Past in Flames is a way for them to kill you.
It's actually very good against Storm because Storm can't go for an ad nauseum kill against this deck because you put so much pressure on them so quickly. So they're pretty much reliant on the Past in Flames kill. If you have a Grafdigger's Cage to prevent them from like flashing back spells, sometimes they actually just can't win.
Yeah. Scavenging Ooze is also good against any graveyard-based decks, like Reanimator or Dredge. Flusterstorm is good against Storm. It's also good against Sneak and Show. Really, any of the combo decks that are going to try and pressure you with instants and sorceries is mainly where you want it. Remember, it only counters instants and sorceries.
Can't counter Sneak Attack.
I've had many people try to Flusterstorm a Sneak Attack or a Jace or a Tezzeret, and it just doesn't work.
Nope.
But then I know they have it in their hand. Ancient Grudge, again, Batterskull is such a huge beating for this deck, we want to have an answer to it. And Sulfur Elemental is a very unique card, but also very, very good. So some of the cards that are good against this deck, like Thalia is good against this deck since we have only 18 lands and we're trying to use all these instants and sorceries to draw into the rest of our deck. And Mother of Runes is very good at keeping all of their creatures alive, making it so we can never attack and never trade profitably. Sulfur Elemental is good against both of those creatures, but it's also good against Lingering Souls.
Yeah.
So Lingering Souls has fallen a little to the wayside with, Emrakul's and Gristlebrands being
as it should
being the way to go. But there are some people like Sheen Serrani that still like to play Lingering Souls, and Lingering Souls is a very good card against Rug Delver, and Sulfur Elemental is very good against Lingering Souls.
Very true.
2 Pyroblast, just another way to counter troublesome blue spells, or destroy blue permanents like Jace if we need to. Submerge is very good in the mirror match, also against Jund. Really anything that has Deathrite Shaman and or Tarmogoyf in their deck, Submerge is going to be good against.
Yeah, it's also fun against decks like Elves and stuff too if you need it. And like one of the, or like any Knight of the Reliquary deck like Maverick, it's great against those decks. Because one of the awesome things you can do with Submerge is anytime they go to search their library, either with like a Knight activation or a fetch land, you can submerge their creature and
it goes away.
They have to shuffle it away then.
Yep. And then Rough Tumble is a card that has risen in popularity recently in the sideboard of the Rug Delver decks, just as a Pyroclasm that doesn't kill their Delver of Secrets once they jump up into the air. So it allows us to, take advantage of how good Pyroclasm is against certain decks without, killing our Tarmogoyfs or our Delver of Secrets.
And also, if Mongoose is big enough, doesn't kill that either. It's actually just a straight one-sided Pyroclasm for the most part, and it's very good against a lot of the decks that we mentioned. Yeah.
Now, one unique thing about this spell that some people have forgot a little bit is it doesn't have Fuse.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't cast both halves. That came up. I remember hearing something about Owen say one of his opponents tried to fuse a Rough Tumble, and it doesn't really work that way. But if you happen to have, 6 mana, you can cast the other side if you really need to.
Hey, clear some Lingering Souls tokens or whatever.
Well, so I can tumble and then bolt a Gristlebrand.
Yep.
Good, we're gonna get there. So that's the sideboard for the Rug Delver deck, and I'm excited to play this against the Sneak and Show deck. The Delver decks are traditionally, very, I don't want to say good against the Sneak and Show decks, but the matchup can go either way depending on how the draws play out and how the players navigate the game. It usually just comes down to how much patience does Sneak and Show have and how good of aggressive draw do I get as Rug Delver.
Yeah, Rug Delver is one of the few fair decks that's actually that's actually good against Sneak and Show. Most of the other ones like Blue White Red Delver or any of the Deathrite decks are just way too slow and don't put enough pressure on to actually be good against Sneak and Show. But Rug Delver does.
So let's jump into the games and see who will be the victor this time.